Oh shit. Family. I know I'm a little slow today, but it be like that sometimes. Oh shit. Turn it. Yeah, so we won't be listening to me. I'm gonna do some work. So I can. All right, we back in business. So glad to be back with you for another episode of Soul Swami Live. This is Thursday Night Book Club. And it is a spin-off of our Tuesday night show. Thursday Night Book Club is in an effort for us to be able to reconnect to the child in us, which our Tuesday show is all about healing. So a spin-off of an opportunity to be able to reconnect with the child in us is a fantastic thing. Today we are continuing reading Lucretia and the Kroons by Victor Lavalle. So I hope you enjoy. Don't forget, leave a couple comments. Tell me your thoughts. Join the conversation. You can catch our show every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. And then when I'm feeling froggy, I'll put it on Instagram as well, but guaranteed to be on YouTube, Twitch, and the Facebox. At the beginning of every show, we generally do some energy cleaning, some chakra work. And this week we are on our solar plexus. Solar plexus is good for your personal power, your self-esteem, your strength, your ego, and your confidence. Ooh, I keep seeing that shit. The element for your solar plexus is fire. So that fire burning inside of you burns in your gut. If you are into aromatherapy, essential oils, things of that nature, you want to think lemon, cedarwood, ginger, juniper, lemongrass. And if you're in the stone, you want to think citrine, tiger's eye, sunstone, topaz, pyrite. Just for a couple of examples. Ooh, excuse me, I'm a little gassy. Better out than in. All right, we're going to start with our sound bowl. Then we'll do some breathing exercise. Tuesday we did 369. I don't feel like doing 369 today. I think we're going to do 478 two times. That's a difficult one, so we'll do it two times. And we'll start with our sound bowl. For our breathing exercise, again, we'll do 4-7-8. If you are unfamiliar what that is, we breathe in for a 4 count, hold for a 7 count, and breathe out for an 8 count. But all you really have to do is just focus on your breathing and listen to me as I keep track of the count for you. We're trying to settle our energy from the day and calm down and be in a space to be able to relax. So on the count of 3, we'll start our breathing exercise of 4, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last time, family. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I was getting sidetracked looking at some of these poses. I'll give you some more information. The element for your solar plexus is scratch. I was getting sidetracked looking at some of these yoga poses that are good to work on your solar plexus. One is a plank, and planks make it work. But then there's a bow pose, and it's funny because I used to do that all the time as a kid, just randomly. Knees to chest is an excellent pose to work on your solar plexus. Downward dog, triangle pose, boat pose, and warrior 1. The element for your solar plexus is fire, so our visualization will incorporate that. And I want you to visualize that fire that I said burns inside of you. I want you to see it right now. It's just a small fire. And I want you to look inside yourself and find that space where you could see that fire burning inside of you. And with every affirmation and every breath in, I want you to see that fire inside of you grow. So breathe in, oxygenate that fire, and repeat after me. I am confident. Breathe in. I act with courage. Breathe in. I am a powerful being. I am motivated, persistent, and successful. I honor myself. I am confident. I act with courage. I am a powerful being. I am motivated, persistent, and successful, and I honor myself. It's funny. You say when you want to work on your solar plexus to eat more certain foods: corn, bananas, ginger, oats, yellow lentils, squash, pineapple, lemon, honey, turmeric. Set goals and practice using your willpower to complete them. I know that's right. Physical exercise, consistent exercise, including dancing. That's funny. One of the people I've been working with has always loved dancing, which is similar to me. So I understand, but somewhere along the line, they have not been in a position to be able to dance as much as they used to. And they've been in a space to recapture their love for dance. And I get that because I love dancing. I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to be the world's first dancing lawyer. I still laugh at that. It's interesting. And yeah, I love dance. Dance is good for your solar plexus. So we are on chapter 7. And Lucretia was waiting on her friend to come downstairs, but she started hearing a strange woman outside, so she followed the woman, and now she's in this strange 6-floor apartment that nobody goes to, and somehow it turned into the park that her and her best friend used to play in. I think her friend is suffering from cancer, so it is tough. And honestly, I think at this point her friend has passed, and she's just emotionally trying to figure out a way to deal with it. I say that because she went past the window and saw her friend grandma crying, and the ambulance came and stopped in front of her building, and a lot of stuff. She just ain't checked in. I mean, connected the dots yet. But chapter 7, Flushing Meadow Park. The real one was enormous, 1.5 times the size of Manhattan Central Park, and the one here inside 6D. Pause. Alexa, turn living room lights yellow. Boom. The one here inside 6D seemed even larger. Lucci crossed the second meadow with a quickness that surprised even her. Her socks were soaked from the light dew in the grass. When the Kroons broke through the tree line behind her, they looked like specks in the distance. She was that far from them already, but there was more ground to cover before she reached the Unisphere. After the meadow, she reached a concrete path with benches. The concrete was cracked and uneven. The benches were broken apart. Splintered pieces of wood jutted out all directions, as if the incredible Hulk had came through and smashed each one. Lochi didn't hesitate. She just kept sprinting. As she closed the distance between her and the stainless steel Unisphere, she saw the one here wasn't exactly the same as the globe in Flushing Meadow Park. In that park, the Unisphere sat upright, in the same position as the world, tilted on its real axis. But here in 6D, she could see the silver globe hung at a precarious angle. Instead of being perched on a stand tilting slightly but secure, the one teetered so far over it looked like one good shove would send it rolling away. Then the terrible grunting and barking seemed close again. Lucci looked back, her pace slowing so she wouldn't trip on the uneven ground. The Kroons had reached the concrete. All of them were there. Pitt, Lefty, the twins. They were at the line between the meadow and the concrete path, but they stopped. All four of them had the same narrow, long build. She would have guessed they were brothers, even if Lois hadn't told her. They looked like four demons. Their decaying jeans, t-shirts sagged on their thin bodies. From a distance, this made it look like they were shedding their skins. Again, Lucci thought of Sonny. How had she survived them? How had she escaped? Maybe she didn't. Again, Lucci brushed that thought away. The four males stood still and watched her patiently. What were they waiting for? She kept running. She wasn't going to wait and find out. Straight ahead to the Unisphere, hoping and praying to find her friend there. The Kroons barked again, all together now, and Lucci looked over her shoulder. The last of the Kroons, the one without legs, had finally reached his. Brothers. The twins reached down to lift him. What happened next, she almost couldn't believe. The twins heaved him backward and then chucked him into the air. They threw him at her. And as he tumbled through the air, could it be possible? Was the legless Kroon smiling? Yes, he was. He was. Haunting her. Hurting her. To them, it was just a game. Having fun. Right then, they seemed like boys at play. At least until legless one. Chuck landed hard on the concrete. She named the legless one Chuck. They was throwing him in the air, which is wild. He slammed into the ground, and the moment turned him over twice. As he rolled, he made a weird choking noise. It took a second for Lucci to realize he was laughing. And when he stopped, Lucci had stopped too. They'd thrown him so hard, so far, that he landed ahead of her on the path, blocking her straight run to the Unisphere. Chuck was on his belly. He planted two of his arms and raised his head and snarled at her like a guard dog. And now the other Kroons came screaming up the path behind her. They had her at both ends. Luckily, Lucci knew this part, knew what she would find just west of here. If it was indeed a twisted version of Flushing Meadow, the playground for all children. It had swings and slides and little tunnels and bridges for kids to walk across. Plenty of spaces for girls like her to sneak through, hide, under, disappear. Lewis used to push her on the swings back when she was small. Lucci broke left, going off the pad, heading toward the playground. She hoped it would be there. The playground for all children was straight ahead. She even felt grateful to see the black fencing that surrounded the grounds. The tops of the fence were sharp, pointed. She made it to the front gates. They were open, but when she tried to pull them shut behind her, she couldn't manage it. Each gate hung at awkward angles, and she saw that they were broken, their hinges warped. Shutting the gates wasn't going to happen. She just had to keep going, disappear among the tunnels and slides. As she entered the playground, she passed the green plaque that hung on the side of every New York City park. A familiar sight, the name of each park engraved in clear lettering. She barely looked at the words, ran 3 steps past it before she caught herself. Something was wrong. Something was off about that sign. Despite the fear she felt, the knowledge that the Kroons were closing in, she still turned back to read it. She read the 4 words out loud. Playground of lost children, she whispered. She didn't want to go in, but what choice did she have? Chapter 8. After 5 steps, it was as if the rest of the park, the rest of the world, had been shut out. No sounds carried over. She looked around. Even the Kroons, their barking was gone. She couldn't see them either. They hadn't been that far behind her, so where were they? Nowhere. The faint breeze she'd been brushing the top of the grass had felt against her skin had disappeared. The air here was completely still. Even the sky seemed to be shut off from her now. She could still see the overcast grayness, saw a spark of lighting over the meadow, but she never heard the crack of thunder that should have followed. A moment after that, she saw rain, faint droplets, falling in the distance, a rain shower throughout the park, but not here, everywhere but here. Not a drop fell on the playground. It was so quiet, in fact, that she heard her own footsteps on the concrete, and when she reached the platted pay area, she could hear the plastic weeds beneath her. There wasn't anything but fencing separating this area from the rest of the park, but it was as if the playground fences were locking the world out, but maybe also locking Lucci in. Lucci walked through the padded playground, and just before she reached the row of swings, she came across a child's bike. It was upright, made for a kid younger than her, red with rainbow tassels coming out of each end of the handlebars. It had one training wheel attached on the left side. The right one was missing. She stepped around the bike toward the baby swings. There were four of them in a row, black and plastic. They were closed off inside a low set of black gates. From here, she could see there was something sitting inside one of the swings. She opened the gate, and that metal whined, making Lucci stiffen with fear that the Kroons would hear the noises. She stood there, the top of the gate in her right hand, and it took almost a minute before she could breathe normally again, before she could walk. She walked to the third swing in a row. There, tilted at an angle in a swing seat, was a toy school bus. She picked it up, and when she did, the bus's little lights flashed, and the toy rumbled out the sounds of an engine chugging. She balanced it on her open palm. Lucci walked away from the swing, still carrying the bus. As she moved to the next part of the playground, a big blue jungle gym with two yellow slides, she found more children's toys lying there and here. She stepped over two baseball bats and three small gloves. She found the length of a jump rope in the heap. There were frisbees and bright rubber balls, soccer balls, and even tennis rackets, but no kids. She passed under the silver awning, like a metallic tent top, that threw shade down on a portion of the playground. She found a razor scooter there, still standing. She didn't want to even touch it. Where had all the kids gone? As she passed the scooter, she dropped the yellow bus. She hadn't realized she was still holding it. It fell on the side and the headlights flashed. The engine chugged, but Lucci wasn't listening. She stepped out from the awning, just wanting to sit down. Where were all the kids? Were they dead? All of them? She felt what? Weighed down by the thought, by the reality. Maybe children just die. They do. Sometimes. Lucci sat cross-legged, and it felt like she was going to melt. She covered her face with two hands. Her eyes burned as she began to cry. She imagined Sonny, but not just Sonny, maybe all the kids who'd owned these toys, burned alive by the Kroons of apartment 6D. A place that was no apartment at all, but something else. Was it hell? Nobody had ever explained to her where hell was. People said it was underground, but how far down? She'd been riding the subways her whole life, and she never seen the pit of hellfire filled with burning souls anywhere on the 7 line. So why couldn't hell be located in a 6th-floor apartment in Flushing? What if she had gone looking to rescue her best friend and got herself trapped in hell instead? And what if she never escaped? Who would take care of her mother? Would Lucci just die here, starve to death? She didn't even have a toy to leave behind. Eventually, her body would wither away, and there'd only be her bones. But there aren't any other bones here. Plenty of toys, but no bones. It was this realization that re-energized Lucci. If these kids had just died here, there'd be bodies all over the place. There'd be something. She'd seen ashes fall from the tip of that first Chinese cigarette she smoked. Wouldn't bodies have at least leave ashes too? But there were none. Now Lucci imagined that all the kids, one for each toy, dozens of them, were huddled away somewhere, together, and that sounded a lot better than being alone. Lucci stood again. She located the unisphere on the landscape. It loomed larger than it had before, maybe 100 yards away now, She walked to the edge of the playground and strolled along the fence line. She didn't want to go back out the gates she'd walked through. Maybe the Kroons couldn't come into the playground any more than the wind or the rain, but they could be waiting right outside the other side of those gates. In the real world, this playground had two entrances. Maybe this one did too. She'd walk along the fence line until she found the other one and hope none of the Kroons was waiting for her. She put one hand and ran it along the fence as she walked, the tips of her fingers slightly numb, in a good way, as she made sure to brush every pole she walked past for good luck. Because she was concentrating so hard on finding the other exit, she didn't immediately notice that the sound of thunder rolling towards the playground. But as the sound got louder, Lucci looked up. The rain had already stopped throughout the rest of the park, though the skies remained gray as before. Lucci tried to track the clouds. She missed one fence post, then another as she moved. Lucci saw only one cloud in the distance. It was enormous. That deep gray that signals a serious downpour is coming. The cloud glided across the closer meadow, but it looked like the wind would carry it elsewhere. But then the cloud shifted. She watched it happen and couldn't quite understand what she was seeing. It wasn't like the wind directions change and cloud moving east begins to slowly move northeast. No. As Lucci watched, the great dark cloud seemed to bend. There was no way of mistaking the movement. The cloud turned. It steered toward the playground, toward her. And once it changed direction, it seemed to increase speed, moving so quickly that Lucci barely stumbled back 5 or 6 steps before she could understand what that noise in the sky really was. Not a thunderclap, but the beating of wings, like she'd heard when she passed the lopsided door in the hallway of 6D. Hundreds of wings, maybe thousands. She passed through the room and felt lucky she didn't have to know what was causing the sound, but now she could see. A cloud of rats. No, that's not quite right. A flock of rats. The worst of New York City's varieties, the kind that plague subway tunnels and platforms, the kind that live in building basements in the deepest cracks and come out late at night to gas through heavy-duty plastic bags of trash left on the streets for pickup. They were big, bulky rats. Their fur was gray as ashes, and their long, thin tails as pink as torn flesh. She could already see their small, black, expressionless eyes. How many pairs? Too many to count. In every way they were familiar to her, every way except one. These things had wings. Pigeons' wings. Lucci had always found New York City's pigeon wings to be quite pretty. The blend of dark gray feathers with nearly white ones, the iridescent rainbow flashes, made patterns that she marveled at. So it was only horrified her more to see the rats bobbing on such beautiful wings. Each time the wings flapped, the rats' claws scrambled in the air as if they were galloping through the air. Lucci hurried along the fence line again, but she couldn't find the second set of gates. Instead, she found herself slowing down. She kept looking over her shoulder as the cloud of rats drew nearer. As she ran, she ducked down and threw her hands up over her head. The rats were almost directly overhead now. Under the flapping of their impossible wings, she heard them squeaking, high-pitched squeaks volleying back and forth, a sound that burrowed under Lucci's skin and made the sides of her face itch. New York City rats could chew through sewer pipes and industrial wire in record time, so how hard would it be for a flock of them to tear through a 12-year-old girl, to chomp through her clothes and even her skin until there were nothing left to gnaw on but her bones. Lucci lost a sense of what she was looking for and ran around the perimeter of the playground wildly, trying to get away. She ran towards the jungle gym, thinking she might climb into one of those tunnels, but then she thought better of it. The 2 sides of the tunnel were completely open and broke for the metal awning instead. But this wasn't any better. The rats could certainly fly right underneath. The rats flew in circles above the playground. They squeaked in high-pitched choruses as their wings flapped. She headed back to the gate she had first come through. Maybe the Kroons really would be there waiting for her, but she didn't know what else to do. She didn't even make it halfway to the open gates before the rats attacked. She felt them approaching. Their wings sent gusts of air downward. The wind shook her mother's wig and almost knocked it right off her head. The cloud of rats descended. They slammed into Lucci's back and sent her face down into the playground plastic mats. The cloud passed over her prone body. She felt claws scrambling across her back. Her sweater and t-shirt were no protection. She screamed but couldn't hear herself over the beating of 1,000 wings. She was too dazed to do anything but watch them come for her. The flock of rats spread their wings as one, which made the cloud seem to expand twice its size. Each rat slowed, gliding down. Some of the rats landed on top of her head, on her mother's wig. They landed on her shoulder. They grasped onto her arms, digging their claws into her sweater, through the cotton, cutting into her skin. 10 rats settled on her back. It was like being trampled on by a panicked crowd. They wriggled and clawed at her, and before she even registered her disgust, all those rats started flapping their wings again furiously. If she shut her eyes, she might have thought she was standing up by her own power, but she didn't shut them, so she saw what was happening. The rats had pulled her up. The rats on her head snatched off the wig. They looked down and squealed when they realized they hadn't caught her scalp. They dropped the wig and it fell to the ground. Then they dug into her real hair. They pulled and Lucci cried out. The rest of the flock had gone to the air a second time and came back at her again. Now that Lucci was upright, another dozen rats clamped onto her legs. They crawled on her thighs, her shins, her butt. They dug their claws into her jeans, and she felt the weight tugging at her. She watched their wings expand. They lifted her in the air. She was flying. Floating, really, and only a few inches, but the rats kept beating their wings, and her body rose. She was 3 feet high and rising. That's funny. De La Soul. They were taking her somewhere. Whatever they were going to do with her, they weren't going to do it here. Maybe they'd drag her back to the darkened bedroom with the door hanging off the hinges. Maybe that was where they'd taken all the children who once played with the abandoned toys in the playground. It wasn't the crews that had got them, but the flying rats. Lucci imagined a room the size of a bedroom, empty except for mounds of children's clothes, torn through and bloodied. In the corner lay all the bones. Lucci didn't have any fight in her. She finally accepted it. Horrors come for kids. Lewis had said so. Well, now it had come for her. And she couldn't fight it alone anymore. In fact, Lucci was so busy giving up that she didn't see a small girl charging towards her. "You get the fuck off, Lucci!" Lucci was so startled by the voice that she didn't know which direction she should turn. She looked up before she looked down. Someone had a torch, a bright fire, and was swatting at the rats. One of the rats down near her ankle burst into flames. Its fur flared and it screeched, and it let go of Lucci's pants and flew off. The girl swung again and again. One by one, the rats singed, and they screeched, and they flapped off to safety. After 3 or 4 let go, Lucci was no longer rising. Her body descended. The ground came closer. The remaining rats struggled to hold her up. The ones on her head were pulling out strands of hair as she fell from their grip and screamed. "Kick them off, you dummy," yelled the girl holding the flame torch. Lucci knew that voice. She kicked her legs and twisted her arm. On the ground, the torch swatted at the rat some more. One after another tore away terrified. Lucci's weight became too much for the rats grasping her sweater. A little more hair from her scalp, but they let the girl go. Lucci landed on the ground on her butt. Standing over her was her friend, her best friend. That was no torch in her hand. It was a tennis racket set on fire. "Sonny!" Lucci shouted. But this wasn't a time for a teary reunion. The rats circled above them. A small group of them broke off from the others and shot down at the girls. A first salvo. More followed behind in waves. Sonny swatted them back, singing their wings. I gotta be singeing. But she couldn't stand there doing that forever. She looked at Lucci and screamed, "We have got to run." Chapter 9. Lucci had a funny sound, or really, Sonny had found her. No, Lucci had found Sonny, or really, Sonny had found her. Sonny had saved her, which would have been kind of funny, ironic really, if there'd been any time to sit around and chuckle about it. But the flock of rats had only been pushed back, not scared off. As Sonny and Lucci broke across the playground, the rats swarmed in the air, a cloud of fury. "This way," Sonny said. Her voice was raspy. She sounded nearly breathless. She was so small beside Lucci. Her bald head bobbled up and down as she ran. She held the racket up, its head still burning but starting to die down. Some of the racket strings had already melted. Lucci surprised herself by scurrying over and picking up her mother's wig. Somehow, even in the midst of all this, she didn't want to get in trouble for losing it. After she picked it up, Sonny led Lucci towards the jungle gym. "We can hide in there," Lucci shouted. She pulled the wig back on her head just to have her hands free. But Sonny wasn't listening, only leading. For a sick girl, she moved pretty fast. Fear had charged the engines. Lucci had to rush to keep up. The girls reached the jungle gym as a column of rats bombed down at them again. Sonny ducked under the wooden bridge and Lucci followed her. Under there, Lucci could see the whole fence. A tear. 3 of the black iron bars had been pulled up like the top of a sardine can. Sonny scrambled through the hole in the fence, and Lucci dove after her just as the horde of rats smashed into the jungle gym. Lucci heard the little bridge shatter. The jungle gym exploded into pieces. The slides and the stairs and the walkways and the tunnels, all of it came apart. The rats clawed their way through the rubble, but Sonny and Lucci had escaped. On the other side of the fence, Lucci continued to crawl off, but Sonny stood at the hole in the fence and peeked inside at the rats. "Sonny," Lucci hissed, "why are you stopping?" Sonny raised a tennis racket, the edges of the head all charred, and waved Lucci back to her side. "It's okay," Sonny said. "They can't come through." Lucci stopped moving but stayed on her hands and knees. She looked back. It seemed to be true. Lucci could see the rats through the hole in the fence. They clawed through the debris, but they didn't crawl through the hole. The rats didn't even seem to notice it, or Sonny, even though the girl was standing not 12 inches from them. Sonny raised one very small, thin hand. She pointed at the playground. "If you're in there, they can get you. And if they get you, you're dead. But out here, they have no power. The rats rule the playground. The Kroons rule the park." "Why?" Lucci asked, finally getting to her feet. Slowly, very slowly, taking steps towards Sonny and the hole in the fence. Sonny shrugged. "That's just how it is." She dropped the racket and it clattered on the concrete, but the rats, now sniffing right in front of the hole, didn't look over. They didn't even seem to hear it. "So we're safe?" Lucci asked. "I didn't say that." Now Lucci stood by Sonny's side. She touched Sonny's shoulder. Sonny was there with Lucci. Sonny was there. I almost started to believe you were. Lucci couldn't even finish the sentence. Sonny turned from the fence and looked at her best friend, but didn't seem to hear what Lucci had been trying to say. Didn't even register the grief on Lucci's face. Instead, Sonny pointed at the top of Lucci's head. Why are you wearing your mom's wig? Lucci pressed on one hand on her head. I was playing dress up, she said, while I waited for you to come down. Sonny nodded and looked at her feet. She put her arms out and Lucci held her and they hugged. Sonny felt so frail that Lucci didn't want to grab her too hard. Sonny wore the same pajama Lucci had seen her in that morning. Rock, rock, rock. But they looked dirtier now, stained and worn, like she'd been wearing them for weeks or months, not hours. I wanted to come down, Sonny said. Lucci felt her face getting hot. Was she feeling angry or sad? Hurt? How about all three? So why didn't she ask? You really don't know? Sonny asked quietly. Sonny wore a pair of purple rain boots with white polka dots, which only looked more crazy when paired with those pajamas, though they seemed a hell of a lot better than Lucci's stocking feet. Sonny smiled and pointed at the rain boots. It all happened so fast, Sonny said. I had to leave in a hurry. These are the shoes I grabbed. What happened fast? Lucci asked. Did the Kroons get you? Sonny looked away from Lucci and didn't answer her. Lucci was still confused. But she was just happy to have her friend with her. She almost couldn't believe the luck of it. In a park as big as this, but then it was like the way they'd become friends in the first place. They found each other. We have to get back, Lucci said. I saw your grandmother crying. She's going to be happy to see you again. Maybe I actually see her smile for once, Lucci laughed. Sonny looked back at Lucci and almost tripped over the tennis racket on the ground. She wasn't offended by what Lucci had said about her grandmother. She was looking over Lucci's shoulder. Her attention held. Her gaze rose higher until she was staring right above Lucci's head. But before Lucci could turn around, she saw something moving in a little ways behind Sonny. First, the head bobbing, coming into the view slowly, as if the thing, was trudging up a hill. And as more of it appeared, she felt a terrible grip in her stomach. It was a man, skinny and severe, his clothes sagging on his body, his left arm dangling useless at his side. He was 100 feet behind Sonny, but soon would be closer. He was running towards them. They were outside of the playground where the Kroons ruled again. Lefty's brothers wouldn't be far behind. Lucci grabbed the tennis racket from the ground behind you, she said. But Sonny hadn't stopped staring at the point just behind Lucci yet. Maybe Lefty was coming from one direction and Pitt or the twins or Chuck from the other. Lucci had a terrible feeling, dread rumbling in her stomach. When she turned, though, it wasn't any of the males. It was a female. The one that had come to Lucci's window. The one without a lower jaw. She loomed over Lucci and Sonny. Before Lucci could swing that racket, the Kroon grabbed them both. Chapter 10. Lucci couldn't escape the smell. The female Kroon had snatched her and Sonny. She clutched them close and ran with them. Lucci was confused, overwhelmed, that she couldn't be sure which direction they were heading. She was trying to squirm free, but the Kroon's grip was impossibly strong. But that smell, it was the smell of burning plastic, strong and toxic, and it irritated Lucci's eyes. But behind that smell, along with it, was something sweet. Once Lucci and her mother had tried to make sugar candy at home, and it had gone badly. The whole apartment smelled like this for a day. Lucci tried to pull her head back from the Kroon, but each time she did, the thing only squeezed tighter. And Lucci lost her breath and fell into the stink again. Lucci found herself imagining what would come next. One of the Kroons grabbed Lucci's feet and the other holding Lucci's head, then each side pulling until her feet and head popped right off her body. But when they finally stopped moving, Lucci was dropped to the ground, standing on a new patch of concrete. She was on her back, looking up at the endless gray sky, and she was under the Unisphere. It was right here, only 10 feet away. Because of its precarious angle, it looked as though it was a great stainless steel globe that was about to roll off its stand and crush her. "Sonny?" Lucci called out. But the face that appeared above her wasn't Sonny's. It was a Kroon. It was breathing hard from the run. From this angle, Lucci could see the roof of the Kroon's mouth. It wasn't pink, like a normal person's, but yellow and tough. The Kroon the Kroon coughed, and Lucci felt a scatter of spit on her forehead and cheeks. Ooh, I'd have passed out. They'd have got me right there. She hopped up right after that, and it turned out she'd held on to the old wooden tennis racket, the one Sonny had set on fire. Once she realized she had a weapon, Lucci didn't hesitate. She cocked back and brought that tennis racket down hard, right on the crown of the Kroon's head. Lucci screamed as she connected with the creature, and did the same when she hit that thing a second time. She must have sounded as frightened as Pitt and her brothers ever did. The third time she swung the racket, she only grunted, like Serena Williams during a tennis match. The racket's head was already brittle from the fire, cracked into pieces, leaving Lucci holding only the handle and a portion of the shaft. It had snapped off into a jagged, sharp point. Lucci was basically holding a dagger now. The Kroon had taken all 3 hits and seemed dazed by the attack. But Lucci's ferocity, it was on one knee, one hand flat on the concrete for balance. It still hadn't caught its breath from running with Sonny and Lucci in its arms. Its head dipped down, so the back of his neck was exposed. Lucci could see the top of the spine and a little ball under the skin. She raised that sharp stick so she could drive through. "Stop, Lucci, stop!" Sonny threw herself at Lucci, sending her best friend tumbling over. Lucci and Sonny fell into a heap. The racket handle dropped from Lucci's hand. "What are you doing?" Lucci shouted. Lucci tried to shake free, but Sonny gripped her close. She held Lucci's wrist and looked down in Lucci's eyes. "She's my friend," Sonny said. Lucci struggled some more. "She's my friend," Sonny repeated. Finally, Sonny released Lucci's wrist. She slid away from Lucci, and Lucci sat up. Nothing had happened in 6D stunned Lucci any more than those 3 words. Lucci watched Sonny, dumbstruck. "I'm your friend," Lucci finally said. Before Sonny might react, both girls heard a heavy breathing behind them. Sonny moved toward the sound, toward the female Kroon. When Sonny stood right next to her, they looked like a jockey and a horse, one big enough to stamp the other into dust. The sight made Lucci want to pull Sonny away. Lucci scanned the ground for that tennis racket dagger, which she could still plunge into the monster, like stabbing a vampire with a wooden stake. But it had landed behind the Kroon. Sonny pressed her body against the Kroon, hugging its big arm and resting her head against his shoulder. How could she stand the smell? That's what Lucci wondered. "Are you okay?" Sonny asked quietly. The Kroon sniffled but nodded. "Can you stand up?" Sonny stepped back, and the Kroon rose to a full height. To Lucci, the thing seemed to be 7 feet tall. She looked at that face again, that missing drawl, the dribbles of spit rolling down his neck, and wanted to turn away. But now there were also 2 small gashes in his forehead, and a bump already starting to rise on his scalp. Speed not. Hard for Lucci to believe she could have done such damage to something so powerful. Sonny pinched her lips tight. "I want you to say sorry to Alice." Lucci didn't mean to, but she laughed a little. "Her name is Alice?" The Kroon dropped her head. It almost seemed embarrassed. Sonny crossed her arms. "Lucci's better." That stung a little bit. My name is Lucretia, she corrected. Sonny pointed at the female croon, and hers is Alice. Sonny set her lips tight and squinted her eyes and leaned forward. It was her gangster pose, the one that had scared the Doberman Pinscher away years before. Well, now Lucci understand why that dog had panicked. Despite Sonny's nearly bald head and her body worn down by cancer treatments, even with a monster standing right there, that girl looked like the fiercest thing in the world. Fine, Lucci finally muttered. I'm sorry. But that didn't seem to be enough. Sonny said, I couldn't have saved you without Alice's help. Do you understand that? Who do you think pulled those bars on the fence apart? Me? Now Lucci looked at Alice, but Alice looked away. You did that? Lucci asked. Why? She used to be as bad as the others, Sonny said, but she doesn't want to act like a monster anymore. Now she wants to be friends. Alice opened her hands and extended them so Lucci could see the scrapes on the palms and her fingers. Proof that tearing open the hole in the fence hadn't been easy. That Alice had done something kind for her friend Sonny, and for Lucci too. Wasn't that all she'd been hoping to do for Sonny in her apartment that afternoon? Be a good friend? Alice left her hands out and Lucci walked closer. It's gonna be okay, Sonny said calmly. She uncrossed her arms, relaxed her face. She was cooing at Lucci, the way you might call a skittish cat. Lucci inched closer. Alice's big hands remained outstretched and open. I promise it'll be okay, Sonny said, and the words were so quiet it almost seemed like Sonny was speaking right inside of Lucci's head. Lucci raised her two hands and set them flat on Alice. Lucci's hands were so small by comparison. Then Sonny set her hands even smaller and frailer than Lucci's on top of theirs. Friends, Sonny said. They stood this way and remained quiet for a little time. Go home, Lucci finally said with a smile, but in a moment they heard great echoing yelps of the male Kroons again. They're back, Sonny said, looking at Alice. Strangely, Sonny didn't sound scared. She sounded tired. Alice stood straight. Alice pointed behind them toward the Unisphere. We'll have to hide, Sonny said. Let them pass by. Lucci looked at the stainless steel sphere. She'd always been amazed by the size of it in Flushing Meadow Park, and it was just as impressive here. 12 stories tall, twice as high as Lucci's building. You could actually see through much of the sphere, which was just a series of crossing lines like longitude and latitude lines welded together in the shape of a globe. Only the continents were solid steel, sitting just inside the lines, matching their real positions on the earth. It was a beautiful construction, a work of art, and even here, at its cocked angle, the Unisphere made Lucci feel secure. Alice picked up Sonny in one arm, then she extended the other arm to Lucci. Lucci almost couldn't do it. Let herself be grabbed again, but then the squeals of the males came louder. Getting nearer, Lucci climbed into Alice's embrace. Then Alice ran towards the Unisphere. She hopped over the concrete barrier that surrounded the base of the sphere, landed into a pool of murky water. As Alice ran, the pool got deeper, the water coming up to her ankles at first, but then her knees, even the middle of her thighs. Lucci gazed down into what the water, which looked like sewer sludge. The smell was just as hideous. She pressed her face into Alice's shoulders, preferring the scent of burning plastic to whatever might waft up from the pool. As Alice ran, the sound of splashing water drowned out the other Kroons. They reached the base of the Unisphere, a concrete pedestal. Alice stepped up onto it. She moved around the base until they were right below the continent of Australia. Sonny pulled at it. Australia swung open like a door. They scrambled inside of the Unisphere. Sonny was inside now, walking along the latitude line, one foot in front of the other, with confidence. Her arms hung out slightly for balance. She made it 10 steps before she turned to find Lucci stuck right at the start. I was scared the first time too, Sonny said, and she smiled warmly as she had since they'd met in 6D. You can do it. Lucci looked at the latitude line again. She had to be calm. She breathed quietly, but the barks of the males were so loud it seemed as if they were shouting right into Lucci's ear, and the tremors in her legs got stronger. Sonny had made it all the way across to the next continent, Africa. She called out, I don't want to rush you, Lucci, but Alice needs to get in too. Lucci looked back. Alice stood outside the sphere. On the concrete pedestal base, her body still, but her forehead had gone reddish and sweaty. Alice seemed to be scared of the other Kroons as she was. Lucci decided she would walk across the line like Sonny had done, following Sonny's example. Simple. No fuss, no hesitation. Sonny hadn't even seemed to look down at her feet as she crossed. Lucci would do the same. The sewage water in the pool sloshed a foot below her. If she fell in, she'd probably drown or die of disgust. But she wouldn't pay that any mind. Just walk, just walk, just walk. She made it 3 steps before she slipped. She was falling before she could even scream. Sonny had screamed for her, Lucci! Lucci threw out her hand to try to regain balance, but that only made things worse. She flailed. She could see the water underneath the Unisphere. It was so dark it looked green. She saw gaps between the longitude and latitude lines, like the gaps in the grill work of her security gate, but magnified 1,000,000 times, and she hurtled towards them. And now the smell of the water, pure muck, did reach her. A sharp ammonia scent, and something worse along with it. It felt like she'd been punched. She was going to dive right into it, but she stopped falling. Alice had grabbed her by the waist of her jeans. Alice pulled her back in. Alice walked across the latitude line with Lucci in one hand. Alice grunted with the exertion, but she made it, all the way across where Sonny crouched. Alice reached Africa and set Lucci down. Sonny put her arms around Lucci. Lucci fell into the embrace. Sonny held Lucci tight. You're with me, Sonny told her. I'm not leaving you. The words made Lucci cry even harder than when she'd been alone in the playground for the lost children. But this time, Lucci wept with relief and happiness. She was with Sonny. Sonny wasn't leaving her. Lucci and Sonny and Alice sat inside the Unisphere. They rocked in the cradle of Africa, and they were safe. Chapter 11. A pack of feral dogs would have sounded more civilized. The twins circled the structure. Lucci thought she and her friends were about to get caught for sure, but the twins were distracted. They were looking around for Lucci and Sonny, but they also scanned the pathway around the Unisphere, looking up for the girls and down at the ground, back and forth. Lucci couldn't understand what they expected to find at their feet. It wasn't like the girls had shrunk down to the size of small rocks. But then one of the twins almost seemed to sing in a high-pitched coo, the sweetest sound she'd ever heard one of them make. He leapt to the ground and snatched something up. The other twins crowded close, cooing too. In a moment, the other Kroons, Pit, Lefty, and Chuck, were scrambling closer to the twins, but the first twin ignored them, seemed to have forgotten about everything, all except what was in his hand. He stayed on his knees and hunched over, his back to Lucci. She couldn't exactly see what he was doing, but in a moment, his hands glowed an orange, as if they were on fire, as if a flame had leapt into his palms. The twins brought his face down to his palms and inhaled deeply, loudly, and his shoulders rose and fell. The other twin pushed his face closer to the fiery hands. The other male sprinted closer. Even Alice sat straighter there inside the globe. But in a second, the orange glow died out and both the twins fell backward on their butts into a stupor. They tilted their head back and the gray smoke wafted away from their nose. They smiled absently and shivered. Their whole bodies seemed to deflate. They seemed like they were about to fall over, at least until the Kroons got close. Pitt choked up with rage. He looked like he'd chomp the heads off both the twins if he got a hold on them now. The twins scrambled to their feet and ran, slightly wobbly, from the Unisphere, and the other Kroons chased them. The girls watched them all go. Finally, Lucci lay on her back and looked through the top of the globe. That was weird, Lucci said. Sonny said, I've seen them do that before. Both girls looked to Alice as if she might offer an explanation, but Alice only stared at the spot on the ground where the twins had found their treasure and stayed quiet. Well, can I at least start heading back home now, Lucci asked. Sonny didn't answer. Lucci sat up, but Sonny stayed on her back. I still have my lighter, Sonny said. She raised the left foot and wiggled the rain boot until the lighter, a cheap little bic, slipped out. She held it between two fingers and wiggled it. She looked at Lucci. Lucci sighed. Why are you acting like this? You really think I care about that right now? Sonny shivered for a moment. It looked involuntary, and her eyes rolled up, slightly like she was about to faint. Then she coughed and cleared her head with a shake. She looked at Lucci and her eyes were clearly focused. We said we were going to smoke a cigarette together, just in case. You remember I said that? So I want to smoke a cigarette together now. I'll smoke 10 packs of cigarettes with you, Lucci begged. But let's do it after we get back to my apartment. Sonny's expression changed. A wash of anger doused her face. I'm not going back that way. Don't you get that? Stop acting so stupid and try to understand. Lucci grabbed Sonny's arm and squeezed tightly, with malice. Don't talk to me like this on my birthday, Sonny. Sonny looked down at Lucci's hand. Your birthday is in November, Sonny said. Fine, Lucci said, letting go. She contorted herself until she could reach into her pocket, pulled out the 2 remaining cigarettes. Where's the other one? Sonny asked, sitting up. I smoked it already. Lucci said, it was nasty. Sonny wagged her head from side to side. You just didn't know how to do it right. Sonny snatched one of the cigarettes from Lucci's palm. Hold on to that one for me, Sonny commanded, and Lucci slipped it into her back pocket. Alice sat up now, too. It took a little work, but when all 3 crossed their legs, they were able to sit in a circle. The first thing I want to do, Sonny began, is breathe like this. Sonny sat erect and breathed in through her lips, but then held on to the breath and pushed her bony chest out. She let it expand and held in the air inside. Finally, she deflated, and the air rushed out of her nose, a faint shushing sound. Now you 2 do it. Lucci gave it a half a dozen tries. Alice clearly knew how to inhale, but Lucci was lousy. She might get the breath down, but her chest just was quickly fall apart, coughing and snorting. And this was before she even inhaled any smoke. Sonny watched Lucci with disappointment and even aggravation. Well, where did you learn to do it? Lucci finally spat. I watched my grandmother, duh. When Sonny put it that way, Lucci only wanted to prove herself better at it than Sonny could ever be. So all 3 sat there for about 10 minutes just practicing their breathing. They looked like a yoga class. Finally, Sonny's patience had ran out. She tapped the bottom of the lighter against the stainless steel plate beneath them. We're just going to have to try now, Sonny said. This made me sick the last time, Lucci admitted. She looked away from Sonny when she said it, feeling stupid and inexperienced. The practice had helped, though. While Lucci still coughed badly at first, she was able to get it right after full pulls. Sonny, meanwhile, puffed like an expert. And what about Alice? What did she do? Obviously, she couldn't smoke a cigarette without a bottom lip. Instead, Lucci and Sonny took turns inhaling the smoke and leaning across to Alice to blowing it down her throat. Alice inhales expertly, considering the realities. Each time the girls exhaled, they watched the smoke trail up, gray ribbons and clouds floating towards the sky. Soon enough, the whole cigarette was smoked down. After it was done, they lay on their backs again, looking up at the unchanged, overcast day. How do you feel? Sonny asked. Neither Lucci or Alice responded. Should we smoke the last one? Sonny asked, but she sounded less assured than the first time. Lucci lay there feeling buzzed up and dizzy. Her hands were warm, her face tingling in a good way. But each time she lifted her head to answer, Sonny's stomach lurched, and she thought she would vomit. Not yet, Lucci groaned. And Alice, also on her back, waved her arms in front of her. Another no vote. Chickens, Sonny said, pretending to be disappointed, but Lucci could tell that she was relieved. That last cigarette would stay in Lucci's pocket for now. They stared at the top of the globe, the far end of the world. What did you mean when you said you weren't going back that way? Lucci asked. Which way are you going then? Up through the frame of the hemisphere, the gray sky seemed endless. Sonny sat up. She looked down at Lucci. You've got boobs, Sonny said. She said this with no effect on her voice, but the words were clipped, like Sonny was holding back a rush of true emotion. Lucci didn't even understand the sentence for a second. Hadn't she just asked about something else entirely? Something that seemed far more important? Finally, she raised her head slightly, fought back the moment of dizziness, and saw her two nipples poking through the fabric of her t-shirt. These? She asked, as if Sonny had just cracked a ridiculous joke. You should see Monique. Sonny crossed her arms. I don't want to see Monique, she whispered. Alice stood up slowly, carefully. With all three of them on the single steel panel, there wasn't much room for the Kroon to maneuver. She had to be very careful with her long body for fear of knocking one of the girls off the sides. Alice tucked her nightdress between her knees and closed her legs tight, so she extended her hands over her head. Her arms were so long, she could grab at the pair of the latitude lines running above. You wouldn't ask me to go back, Sonny said in a soft voice, ignoring Alice's movements. If it was you getting all the treatment all these years. I want you to come back because I love you, Sonny. You're my best friend. Don't you love me too? Alice, holding the latitude lines tight, pulled herself up, then flipped over, so her legs were in the air. Alice hooked both legs over the latitude bars, then let go with her hands, and her upper body swung down. She looked like a child playing on a set of monkey bars. Lucci wanted an answer from Sonny, but she couldn't ignore Alice any longer. She had no idea what was happening, but from Sonny, she had no idea what was happening, but Sonny seemed to know. Alice grabbed Sonny's hand, then curled her body upward, pulling Sonny up as well. She plucked Sonny up, and Lucci watched, almost fainting as Sonny scrambled through the crack of Africa and Europe and climbed out the other side of the Unisphere. Sonny was standing on top of the world. Lucci heard Sonny's rain boots squeaking as they walked across Europe. Then Alice swung down again, hands out, and gestured for Lucci. And here's the crazy part. Lucci didn't hesitate. She grasped Alice's wrist and felt her feet lift away from the security of the steel plate below her. She crawled through the gap and lay flat. When she climbed out the other side, the wind had picked up, and she shivered with a slight chill that felt like fear. She saw Sonny ahead of her. Sonny had walked all the way to the north edge of Russia, the very top of the world on this tilted hemisphere. Lucci moved so she wouldn't be blown off the side. All right. Okay, yeah. Lucci reached Sonny. Sonny put out her hands. Lucci took it and rose to a crouch beside her friend. Lucy couldn't look away from Sonny's face. Lucy's mothered wig, still on her head, rose slightly as the wind snuck underneath it, but it stayed on. They were facing the western end of the park. Another long, jagged run of concrete scrolled out before them. It was a parking lot as long as a football field. At the end of it was an enormous stadium, City Field, where the Mets played baseball, where Lewis had taken her, though, of course, this wasn't that City Field. It looked different, older. The stadium's wall were blue and white, while City Field were reddish brown. That's where I'm going, Sonny pointed. Why do you want to go there, Lucci asked. It sure didn't look nicer than Sonny's apartment. I know how it looks on the outside, Sonny said, but inside the stadium, it's a very happy place. Alice will take me up to Gate C, the home plate entrance, and I'll walk through. Everyone who makes it inside is at peace. It's bright and warm all day. You could take a seat in the stands or run around with the other kids down on the field. There's no pain there, no need for hospital visit. Doesn't that sound nice? All right, family. We're going to stop there. And we'll pick up next week. Whew. I appreciate you for your time. I think my life about to start getting busy again with work, at least. So we about to do some traveling again. So I'm ready. I need to make some more travel videos, and I've been sitting still for way too long. But I hope to see you Tuesday, where we are discussing generational curses. We've been categorizing, we did 25 curses, and we are categorizing them by what they affect your mental body, your emotional body, your physical body, or your spiritual body. And then once we have them in those groups, we will draw the direct connection to the blessing that those curses are really supposed to be. Because again, we only feel it's a curse because of the burden of the responsibility of our blessings. But hope to catch you Tuesday as we continue that discussion. If you can't make it Tuesday, I hope to see you next Thursday, as we should be finishing up Lucretia and the Kroons. So that should be simple enough. I hope you have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you again. Gratitude, family, and peace.